Welcome again, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Captain Kefo Mbewa, and today we are going to fly from Lusaka International Airport to Harare International Airport in Zimbabwe using this SSG-E195 on the X-Plane 11 simulator. Welcome. Battery 1 and 2 on and auto.
Trim.
Lusaka. Harare. 1444547 200. APU is running. Let's connect the GPU. Start engine number 2. Start the timer. Two normal engine starts. Flap 1. And APU off. Rudder full left. Neutral. Rudder full right. Neutral. We'll use taxiway Bravo. Turn right on Delta to the holding position runway 10 via Foxtrot. And this time we request our ATC clearance, get the ATC clearance and confirm that it's exactly the same as what we had planned. That is GATBA 1 Alpha. Thereafter LNAV. The array sterile cockpit check before takeoff checklist completes.
$80 knots.
80 knots checked.
V1, VR, V2.
Rotates. Positive rate of climb. Gear up. LM engaged. Thousand feet. Climb sequence. FMS speeds. And V flight level change. Select to pilot. To pilot engaged. Transition. Standard sets. After takeoff checklists. Flight level 200 climbing. So we are approaching position GATBA. Position GATBA is where the Lusaka FIR ends and we get into the Harare FIR. If you can see on ground, that's River Zambezi. River Zambezi is the boundary between Zambia and Zimbabwe. Zambia being called Northern Rhodesia and Zimbabwe being called Southern Rhodesia in the colonial days, ages ago. You can also see another water body to our right. That's Kariba Dam. Kariba Dam is on the Zambezi River. It's built on the Zambezi River. And further to the west, of course, we have Victoria Falls. That's our cruise level. The aircraft is accelerating 2.78 Mach, 0.78 Mach. Right, today we're going to see what happens when pilots sleep in flight. So this cruise level is going to be maintained. Either the aircraft is going to disconnect the autopilot when the conditions for autopilot engagement are not met, or we are going to maintain that level until we run out of fuel. Once we run out of fuel, the engines will shut down, of course, and we see what happens. Let's wait and see. So our assumption right now is that the pilots are asleep and no one is doing anything. The green circle is at approximately 20 nautical miles, and by this time we should have a lower altitude under normal circumstances. Reset altitude select means that we need to reset a lower altitude. We're not going to do that since the pilots are asleep. As you can also see, the speed has reduced to 250 knots. That's because that was the planned speed on descent. So as you can see, our speed on descent is 250.76 Mach. And that's what the aircraft will maintain, 250 knots. The message reset altitude select still remains. So the aircraft will just follow the flight plan. That's November Zulu, hydro, final approach fix, then to the runway. However, all that will be done at flight level 310. So essentially that's the first warning to the pilots. But the pilots, of course, have not reacted appropriately. It's still indicating reset altitude select. So what I'll do is I'll clear the message so that we can see other messages that come from the FMS through the scratch pad. Okay, that's position November Zulu. The aircraft is still maintaining flight level 310 as expected. We can now see the speed reducing to 200 knots. 200 knots was the planned speed at position hydro. So the aircraft is still anticipating 200 knots and therefore reducing the speed. You can see the thrust levers reducing. However, all that is happening at flight level 310, which was our cruise level. Of course, the aircraft will turn towards the runway, but at a very high altitude. Now approaching position hydro and turning towards the runway. I just want to zoom it in so that we see what's happening. Next, speed is 136 knots because that is the flight plan speed at the final approach. So final approach fix, speed should be 136 knots. I can already see the low speed awareness tape. Once we have the low speed awareness tape, it will get into a stall. So the aircraft is, there we go, get into a stall. We have a stick shaker and the autopilot has disengaged. Autopilot has disengaged because of the stick shaker. Aircraft on a free fall, no one is watching it. We are descending below flight level 310 because the autopilot disengaged. You can see the rate of descent is approximately 1,900 feet, goes to about 2,000. So it's a shallow descent. There's also a shallow bank over there of about, it will be about 3 degrees or 2 degrees. The aircraft will just keep itself on the same status until we get to the ground. By this time the cabin crew should be wondering how come the pilots are not communicating. Flight level 200 descending and the pilots are still asleep, not woken up at all. We're basically moving in a wide circle. That's why we can see Charles Prince Airport over there, still within the vicinity of the intended airfield. However, the aircraft is not in our control. No setup was done for Harare Airport. As you can see now, the ground is quite visible. Shortly we'll be crossing the 10,000 feet, and again, as I said, now will be a danger to GA aircraft as well. Flight level 080, we just crossed the transition level, so at this point we should have set our QNH, a local QNH. Since we didn't speak to ATC, then we don't have the QNH as well. The radar altimeter is alive, about 1,000 feet to the ground.
Think brake, too low.
Going to recover these aircrafts, because I don't like seeing aircraft that are crashing. That was an EGPWS, set max thrust and pitch up to 20 degrees. Right, so these messages have woken up the pilots. Pilots can now recover and figure out what was going on. But once we are above MSA, I can level it off at 7,000 feet and let the speed accelerate to about 210 knots, maintain 7,000 feet, and figure out the situation. Okay, so we're now settled. Speed on thrust, auto throttle engage, autopilot engage. Set a new arrival, ILS, via position hydro. So you just select ILS initially, turn towards hydro. (132, 161, 193, 32, 37, 161, 193. Localizer live, localizer captured, heading 052, gear down, flap 3, speed 150, and flap 5. Place slope captured, 7,000 feet set, and V approach set. It's 1,000 feet approach stable. It's engaging autopilot.
Autopilot.
Check. Clear to land.
Minimums.
Continuing.
Twenty. 10.
knots.
Left side clear. have vacated the runway. You can stop here and have a review. Main things to be aware about: we should not take a flight or operate a flight while we are fatigued, in a way that both of us will be sleeping. We should sleep in turns, and also the cabin crew should keep calling us every 30 minutes to find out how we are doing. Thank you, and see you again in the next video.